What does it actually feel like to be one of the smartest people alive? We tend to romanticize extreme intelligence. We imagine a life of effortless brilliance, someone who solves problems the rest of us can't even see, who breezes through school, who is destined for greatness. But the psychological reality of having an extremely high IQ, we're talking the top 1% of the top 1%, is far more complicated and in many ways far lonelier than most people expect. Today, we're going inside the minds of the exceptionally gifted.
First, let's set the stage. The average IQ is 100. Mensa, the high IQ society, accepts the top 2%. That's around 130 and above. But we're talking today about people in the 145, 150, 160 plus range. People like that represent roughly 1 in every 10,000 individuals, or fewer. At that level, intelligence isn't just being smart. It's a fundamentally different way of processing reality. Faster, deeper, and with a pattern recognition that operates almost involuntarily. Their brains draw connections across domains that most people never link together. They can hold multiple complex frameworks in mind simultaneously, and they often arrive at conclusions before they can fully explain how they got there. That sounds like a superpower, and it is, but superpowers come with weight. It often starts in childhood. Highly gifted children tend to be identified early. They read before their peers, ask questions that unsettle their teachers, and show an almost unsettling depth of curiosity. But here's where the psychology gets interesting. Many of these children are praised relentlessly for being smart, and that praise, well-intentioned as it is, can become a psychological trap. Psychologist Carol Dweck's research on mindset shows that children praised for intelligence rather than effort often develop a fixed mindset. They begin to see their intelligence as their identity. And when that identity is threatened, when something is hard, when they fail, when they're not the smartest person in the room, the psychological fallout can be severe. Many highly gifted adults report a deep, almost paralyzing fear of being found out as ordinary. Imposter syndrome doesn't disappear with a high IQ. In some cases, it intensifies.
Here's one of the most consistent findings in the psychology of extreme giftedness: profound loneliness. Not the loneliness of being unlikable or antisocial, though that sometimes plays a role, but a more existential loneliness. The loneliness of being cognitively out of sync with almost everyone around you. Imagine you process information 3 times faster than the people you're talking to. Imagine every conversation feels like it's running in slow motion. Imagine you're always holding back, simplifying your language, suppressing your ideas, waiting for others to catch up. Not out of arrogance, but out of learned necessity. Over time, that becomes exhausting, and it becomes isolating. Psychologist Letta Hollingworth, one of the earliest researchers on gifted children, found that children with IQs above 180 had significant difficulty forming peer relationships, not because they were arrogant, but because the intellectual and emotional gap was simply too wide to bridge naturally branches. Many highly gifted adults describe a sense of being permanently foreign, like they're observing the world from behind glass.
Extreme intelligence is often accompanied by extreme overthinking, and this is where the psychological burden becomes most visible. The same brain that can model complex systems can also model every possible way a conversation could go wrong, every flaw in a plan, every catastrophic outcome of a decision. High IQ individuals are significantly more prone to what researchers call overexcitabilities, intense emotional, psychomotor, sensory, and intellectual responses to the world. They feel things deeply. They notice everything. And because their minds are always running, always analyzing, always questioning,
they often struggle to turn it off. Anxiety, perfectionism, and analysis paralysis are disproportionately common in this population. There's a reason many of history's most brilliant minds were also described as tormented. The same engine that powers extraordinary thought doesn't come with an off switch.
Here's something that surprises most people. Many extremely high IQ individuals are underachievers. Not because they lack ability, but because of a constellation of psychological factors that work against them. They get bored easily. Standard educational and professional structures rarely challenge them enough. They may resist authority, especially when they can clearly see flaws in a system they're expected to follow. They struggle with tasks that don't intrinsically interest them because their brains are wired for depth and novelty, not routine compliance. Many gifted adults also describe what researchers call multipotentiality, an almost frustrating abundance of capability across so many domains that choosing a single path feels like a kind of self-betrayal. When you're capable of doing almost anything, deciding what to do with your life can become uniquely paralyzing. The world expects genius to announce itself loudly, but very often, it quietly disappears into a life that never quite fit. So, what does the psychology of extremely high IQ people actually need? Research points to a few things consistently. Intellectual community, genuine peers who can match their depth and pace. Autonomy, the freedom to pursue ideas on their own terms, without the friction of structures designed for average capability. And perhaps most importantly, permission to be human. Because one of the cruelest burdens of extreme intelligence is the expectation of invulnerability. When people know you're brilliant, they stop offering support. They assume you have it figured out. But emotional intelligence and intellectual intelligence are entirely separate systems. A person can have an IQ of 160 and still not know how to navigate grief or rejection or love. Being smart does not mean being okay. We are fascinated by extreme intelligence because it represents something we associate with human potential at its peak. But potential is not the same as flourishing, and brilliance is not the same as happiness. The psychology of extremely high IQ individuals is one of profound gifts and profound burdens, often held simultaneously, often by people who learned very early that the world didn't quite have a place designed for them. Maybe the most important thing we can take from all of this is simple. Intelligence, at any level, does not exempt a person from the need to be understood. And understanding, it turns out, is something no IQ score can provide for you.